Inside a school prepared for special kids with autism, young Chris is seen solving the pieces of a puzzle. In the other room, his parents discuss what to do with him because they don't know how to handle his condition. Most times, the mom complains that his autism doesn't allow him to make friends and that his only friend is his younger brother, Brax. The teacher proposes that maybe they should leave him here in the nursing home for the summer so they can help with his condition, but his father refuses, saying the world doesn't care if he has autism and that he needs to be in the real world to overcome it. Meanwhile, Chris has finished mounting his puzzle pieces correctly, but when it comes down to the last piece, he starts to panic while singing a nursery rhyme because he can't find that one piece. At that moment, one of the neurodivergent kids helps him pick up the last piece, completing the puzzle. Underneath, it's revealed that he's been solving the puzzle upside down all this while, and it's a picture of Muhammad Ali. In the present day in Chicago, Chris now works as an accountant. He helps a couple file their tax paperwork, after which they thank him and invite him to visit them at some point. Meanwhile, inside the U.S. Treasury Department, the Director of Financial Crime, Ray King, is having a meeting with Medina, the newly appointed analyst from Baltimore University, to uncover who the mysterious accountant is. At first, Ray reveals that he knows about Medina's past, as she was convicted of attempted murder during her teens. He wants her to work on uncovering this case, or else he's going to show the file to the higher-ups so she can be sent back to prison for lying on her resume. Then he gives her some pictures taken by Interpol containing the mysterious accountant, who has been spotted with several terrorists and gang leaders. Ray adds that this man's work for these people is so heavy that they only call him to perform forensic accounting. This means that whenever huge sums of money are missing from their dubious transactions, they call the man to find the loophole and determine how their money is disappearing. When Chris gets home that evening, he plays some loud music while torturing himself with a stick. A flashback shows little Chris throwing a tantrum because his mom has decided that she's tired of dealing with his condition and has made up her mind to leave. The dad tries to stop her, but she is resolute. Back in the present, Chris is at the old couple's farm to practice his shooting. The old man is skeptical about his skill, believing there's no way an accountant could shoot at that distance. To his surprise, Chris hits his target with great accuracy, leaving the old man in shock. Next, Chris goes to a storage unit where it's revealed that he has a trailer he uses to store his guns, cash and some documents, including unique paintings he collects as a form of payment. When he tries to rest, Chris remembers his time in prison with an old accountant who taught him about money laundering. He goes through some of the messages from his clients, and his PA advises him to work for a legitimate robotics company this time. According to her, some unwanted people are already looking into his case, meaning the FBI. She adds that working for the company would make them drop their suspicions, and Chris agrees with her. The next day, Chris makes it to the Living Robotics Company, a firm that specializes in creating aesthetic robotic mechanics that help humans who have lost some parts of their bodies regain motion. When he arrives at the company, he meets with the board members. The CFO tries to discourage him from looking through the company's accounting system to find the missing money, saying that CEO is his best friend and he wouldn't take any money from the company without his say-so. But Chris doesn't care about his relationship with the owner of the company and gives them a list of what he needs them to bring so he can start his investigation. Meanwhile, at the Treasury Department, Medina works on researching the alias name the accountant has been using during his work with the terrorists, but nothing solid shows up. Frustrated, she takes a snapshot of one of the images and sends it to the Department of Homeland Security, requesting face mapping. They are able to find a surveillance video that matches the description of the accountant. In the video, he's seen beating up two mobsters on the street, then goes inside the club to kill the owner. A voice recording is recovered and sent directly to Medina. The next day at the robotics company, Chris arrives to find Dana sleeping. He wakes her up, and she reveals that she was the one who found out about the missing money and has been working all night to prepare the files he requested. She asks if he would need her assistance, but Chris says no and that he will take it from here. In the following hours, Chris gets ready for work as he starts looking through the accounting files from the past 15 years, writing down all the nuances across the years on a whiteboard, even extending to the glass door. Back to Medina, she starts to replay the extracted audio over and over again until she notices something. When she uses advanced audio editing software, she's able to hear a man singing a nursery rhyme. In the morning, Chris is sitting at a table staring at his work when Dana shows up. He then goes ahead to show her his findings over the past few years. Someone in the company has been buying a non-existent product, and during the purchase, the person has been generating random numbers to make the purchase look legitimate. They are both amazed, but Dana points out that she was able to go through 1 fiscal year in months, while he went through 15 fiscal years overnight. While they talk, one of the board members enters the room, so he explains to her that after his calculations he's able to deduce that over $60 million is missing from the company's finance and what's left is to find who's behind this fake purchases. Meanwhile, the CFO is at his house and tries to grab a snack from his refrigerator, only for a man sitting behind him to threaten him and ask him to sit down. The man shows him an insulin shot that's in front of him and asks him to take the shot with dignity and just die, or else they'll be forced to kill him and his wife. When Chris gets to the conference room the next day, custodians are inside erasing his work from the windows. He tells them to stop, and the owner of the company comes in to explain that his best friend, the shareholder, killed himself last night over guilt of stealing money from the company, and he wants Chris to stop working on the case. Chris is very upset that he didn't get to finish what he started. Chris goes home and has an intense session of beating himself on the shins with his wooden rod while he listens to heavy metal music and turns on the strobe lights. He has another flashback of his mom leaving the family, and he breaks the rod over his shin and throws his bottle of medication. He calms down and takes his meds and goes to bed. The next morning, when he leaves the house, a car follows him. Chris goes to his client's property to practice shooting again. He has a flashback from his childhood of fighting with his brother, Brax, and a trainer his dad hired. The trainer beats them and they are covered in cuts and bruises. The trainer wants to call it for the day, but their dad says they haven't had enough. He makes the boys get up and keep fighting. Inside the house, the two clients are being held hostage by a couple of thugs. They demand that the wife go outside to call Chris in so they can get to him. When a thug escorts her to the front door, Chris shoots him from the yard. The other thug forces the couple to get in their truck and drive them from their property. Chris shoots at the truck, causing it to stop, and drags the thug from the vehicle. Chris strangles the man with his belt and demands to know who he is working for. The man says he doesn't know who is in charge, just that he was told to kill Chris and Dana. Chris kills the man and leaves the property, heading for Dana's house. A man follows Dana to her apartment complex and Chris arrives just in time to see him get into the elevator with her. Chris sneaks into the back of the building and climbs the stairs. Dana gets to her apartment and two delivery men say they have a package for her. They shove their way into the apartment and try to subdue her, but she fights back and goes to hide in the bathroom. Chris breaks into the apartment and kills the two men and tells Dana to come with him. Brax gets a call that his men have been killed by the accountant. Chris takes Dana to his trailer and tells her to wait outside while she gets ready. She comes inside anyway and sees all of his money and weapons. She questions him about them, but he is unable to give her any direct answers. Medina gets a call from language services about the audio file she sent them. They tell her that the man she's looking for could be a victim of childhood abuse or could have some kind of neurological disorder that causes him to chant the nursery rhyme in times of stress. Medina heads to the IRS offices and works with an employee to try and cross-reference the accountant's aliases with people who have high incomes. Chris takes Dana to a fancy hotel to hide out and she questions him about his fighting abilities. He tells her that his dad was in the army and made him trained to be able to stand up to bullies. He also tells her that he has autism and that it's very hard for him to socialize even though he really wants to. Dana tells him a story about a dress she really wanted in high school, so she learned how to gamble and count cards so she could buy it. She only wore it once, but she just wanted it to try to fit in with the other kids. The two share an emotional moment and Dana leans in to kiss him, but Chris pulls away, having a revelation about the robotics case. He tells her that someone was funneling money out of the company only to put it back in and make even higher profits. Sometime later, Chris follows Brax down the street and Brax notices and shoots at him. Chris continues following him and ends up in one of the shareholders' hotel rooms and sees that she's been shot dead. Medina works with the employee at the IRS office and is able to figure out the accountant's real name, Chris, and that he works as an accountant at a small firm in a building connected to a bunch of cash businesses that he owns and runs his money through to hide how much he's actually making. Medina calls King with this information and she tells him that most of the money that Chris makes is donated to neuroscience organizations. When Chris gets back to the hotel, he finds Dana asleep on the couch. He has a flashback of his father forcing him and his brother to beat up a group of kids who had bullied him at school earlier that day. Chris decides that it's too dangerous to keep Dana involved and he packs up his things and leaves. King and Medina lead a team of investigators through Chris's house and they take note of all of his odd living habits. They find that he has a lot of weapons without serial numbers on them and a very high-tech security system. Brax is hired by the owner of the robotics company to set up security cameras in his house in case Chris tries to come after him. King dismisses the other investigators and he and Medina stay behind in the house to talk. He asks Medina to tell him about the details of her arrest and she tells him that she tried to kill a drug dealer that was selling it to her sister and that she doesn't regret her choices. King tells Medina about how long he's been trying to track down the accountant and the hardships he's gone through in order to get this far. He tells her he was at the hotel where the audio of Chris was recorded, and that he overheard him killing the man. Afterwards, Chris held him at gunpoint and asked him if he was a good father. When King said yes, Chris let him go. He took Chris sparing his life as a sign to quit, and just as he was about to leave his office for good, he got a call from a woman with a British accent with tips about an upcoming illegal deal. He decided to stay on the force, using the woman calling as an informant. King interviewed Chris's cellmate who was a federal informant after he was imprisoned for helping criminals with their money. When they finally let him free, the people he used to work for found him, tortured him, and killed him. When one of the guards told Chris about his cellmate's death, Chris freaked out and escaped the prison. He later attended his mother's funeral with his father, but when they were asked to leave, Chris had a meltdown. A security officer shot at Chris, but his father stepped in front of the bullet and died. Medina asks why King is telling her all of this and he tells her that he wants Medina to be the one who answers the phone for the British woman after he retires in 7 months. The landline in Chris's house rings and Medina answers it. The British woman is on the other end of the line and she gives Medina a tip about the robotics company. Brax is at the company owner's house when Chris comes onto the property. Brax sends out some of his men, and Chris kills all but one, who he saves to interrogate about the layout of the house. Brax watches from the security cameras as he sends his men to Chris and tries to give them orders on how to bring him down. Chris sustains several injuries, but manages to kill all of the men Brax sends towards him and enter the house. While Brax watches the security footage, he recognizes Chris as his brother and orders his men to stand down. Brax goes to Chris and the company owner takes his place watching the cameras. At first, Brax is furious at Chris for not being able to get a hold of him for over 10 years, and he's upset that Chris went to their mother's funeral. Brax blames Chris for their father's death and Chris lets Brax hit him to release some of his anger. Chris takes control of the situation and holds Brax at gunpoint until he calms down. The two brothers make up. The company owner walks into the room, confused and upset that Brax hasn't taken care of Chris. Chris shoots the company owner and resumes talking to his brother. Before Chris leaves, he promises to meet up with Brax in a week so they can catch up. Another set of parents visit the neuroscience center seeking advice about their son with autism. Their son wanders into one of the rooms and finds Justine, the director's daughter. She was the same little girl that helped Chris with his puzzle when he was a child. The director explains that Justine is nonverbal, but communicates using a very high-tech laptop. When Justine demonstrates how she communicates, the voice the computer emits is the same British woman that works with Chris. Dana goes back to her apartment to clean up and gets a delivery. She opens it to find a classic painting, but upon further inspection, she sees that the outer canvas is just concealing what's on the inside. She rips the outer layer off and reveals a very expensive painting she recognizes from Chris's trailer. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video and would love to see more from this channel, please like and subscribe.